But I find most disturbing is the religious angle of this.
Yeah.
Which is what we have heard from Ted Cruz and many others.
Yeah. What did you make of that Tucker Carlson interview, by the way? I wanted to ask you about
it. Was bizarre. I mean, I fell out of my chair because I have heard this in the past. They're citing this passage from Genesis. Good. I just went on Blue Sky to check because JD Vance, opened an account there yesterday. And he blocked me. I didn't try to follow him or nothing. I just went over to Blue Sky and I found out that Vance blocked me. So
what goes through your mind? You have the vice president of the United States. Obviously, everybody knows who you are. You have one of the largest followings, but what goes through your mind with that?
There it is. User blocked JD Vance. That's his account. So yeah, I mean, obviously, he doesn't like me. I mean, I'm the one who found that childless cat lady clip among others, and so I was kind of surprised because that account was briefly suspended yesterday because they thought it was an impersonator account, and then they immediately reinstated it. And then all the right wingers were complaining on Twitter that he's being censored by the left, when that wasn't. So I went over there just to see. I wonder how many followers he got. And I found out I was blocked.
I'm wondering, there's a possible war with us and Iran. We know what's going on in the Ukraine and the economy and all these protests everywhere. And on tops of JD Vance's mind, apparently one of the first things he does on Blue Sky is block you.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because when Mike Lindell got reinstated on Twitter, the first day he blocked me. And I didn't even say anything to these people. I didn't go at them. I just went on their page and found out I was blocked. First day Michael Flynn got reinstated, he blocked me. First day Roger Stone got reinstated, he blocked me. And so it's I'm getting blocked on reputation, man. It's not fair.
I don't know, Ron. I think you should wear that as a badge of honor. By the way, those same people, I don't think JD Vance has blocked me, but I think some of those other names like Flynn and Roger Stone have blocked me, but I wear that as a badge of honor because you're doing something right. Before we get into the details with what's going on between Iran and Trump asking for 2 weeks, I do want to talk to you about Juneteenth because MAGA Republicans, because MAGA Republicans get very upset when people like us, say that they have racist tendencies. In the last week, as you know, Trump removed a Martin Luther King Jr. statue from the Oval Office, a statue that correct me if I'm wrong, Barack Obama put there. And now Caroline Leavitt has asked, are you guys doing anything to commemorate today, Juneteenth? And the answer is basically no. Right, Ron? What do you make of this?
Yeah, it's not like they have to have a big ceremony or anything. They're not gonna do it like Obama would do it or Biden, but at the very least, you could sign a proclamation. That's all, that's the minimum that a Republican president can do to sort of acknowledge the holiday. But look, you have people like Charlie Kirk that are out there that have called for repealing the Martin Luther King holiday. So and this one too, by the way. So yeah, and Caroline Leavitt also made it a point to note that all their employees, it's a work day for them, so they're all working.
Absolutely.
And I think for Biden, it was they were all non-essential employees were off.
Right. Yeah. Correct. Absolutely and positively ridiculous. All right. So let's get into some of the comments that were made today. And we hear this thing again, 2 weeks. We keep hearing that with all these, 90 deals in 90 days and 2 weeks. Trump always wants 2 weeks. And now Caroline Leavitt says that at the press conference today, we're going to give Iran basically 2 weeks. What do you make of this?
This is really strange because, I mean, if you remember, something's going on here behind the scenes politically, not militarily, politically. If you put all the reports together, you can kind of read between the lines. Remember, he left the G7 summit because supposedly we're about to go to war and we're about to engage in strikes on Iran. This was a week ago. He leaves the summit now we know that that's not really the real reason why he left the summit. He left the summit because he wasn't going to accomplish anything there. Right. Because they had an agenda that's much different than his. But so he leaves, but that got everybody in a frenzy. I mean, people are checking their social media like every 5 minutes, like when's the war starting, right? And then nothing happened. So I thought, different time zone. Maybe I'm going to wake up in the morning and the war will have started. Nothing happened again. And then we keep hearing it's about to happen. It's about to happen. The generals are all gung ho and they want to go. Hegseth wants to go. Israel obviously wants us to go. So and we were told that, Iran could be hours or days away from developing a nuclear capability, which is a lie. I don't believe that for a millisecond.
Neither does Tulsi Gabbard, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, neither does our own intelligence community, right? But Netanyahu has been saying that for 30 years. So now all of a sudden we've decided to believe that story. But see, the other thing is you got to also distinguish between developing uranium, enriching uranium to be able to develop a bomb, and then having something that can deliver that bomb as a weapon, which is a whole different proposition and takes a lot of time after you've done part one, which they haven't done. So we're being lied to. Again, just like Iraq, it's 2002 all over again. Despite the fact that they don't like the WMD Iraq comparison, there is a lot of parallels here. So if this thing is imminent and they're about to develop a nuclear weapon at any minute, why are we waiting 2 weeks again? I think we're waiting 2 weeks because he doesn't have his people on board politically. His base is divided.
Yes.
And he's trying to use his influencer network. There's been more reporting on that. Charlie Kirk and others are out there trying to win over the base to get them on board for this war.
And Ron, Caroline Leavitt, in a way, was asked about that. Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene say this. What is your response to that? And Leavitt said, well, the president listens to everybody. That's basically what she said. Do you believe, as you just stated, that that's why he's doing this 2-week thing? Because, as you said, he wants to get everybody on board, even those on the extreme far fringe right.
I think he wants to get everybody on board. And I think that he is hoping that Iran will cave, that Iran will give in, surrender. But see, here you go. Here's the other problem is, he just tweeted yesterday or posted yesterday, unconditional surrender. And he's got his people talking about regime change. Well, Iran's never going to agree to either of those two things. I mean, they might agree to something along the lines of the Obama nuke deal that he tore up.
Right.
Or something a little bit, maybe even a little bit stricter than that, but they're not going to agree to anything that Trump is talking about. Certainly not regime change. So that's the question is what is the reason? I think it's to delay. See, there's two ways this could play out. We launched the missiles. Yes, that's going to happen. And he's just looking for the right day to do it. But the other problem is, what if it doesn't work? What if this bunker busting bomb isn't successful, which many experts are saying it's very 50-50? Then he looks like even more of a fool. So it's either that or or Iran's going to come with some concepts of a deal, just like his trade deals. That's not a real deal. And he's going to declare victory and say, peace through strength. I did it again. I'm the hero.
Do you believe, Ron, that this is a situation where Israel is inflating their intelligence to use Donald Trump? Or do you actually feel like this is real intelligence that the Israelis have? Because I'm tending to believe Tulsi Gabbard and our own intelligence, which goes to show you that there really are no further capabilities of nuclear capabilities that Iran has. Do you think Israel, and I guess my question is Benjamin Netanyahu, playing Donald Trump and it's working?
Yeah, I absolutely think that that's the case. Netanyahu has been trying to get the United States to do a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities since 1996. And he has repeatedly given speeches before Congress, on Fox News, on American media over the years, claiming that they're about to come out with a nuke at any day now for 30 years.
Right.
And so our Tulsi Gabbard, our DNI, testified in March before Congress, and she said the consensus of our intelligence community is they are 3 years away, and they are not currently actively trying to accelerate that process. So now when confronted with Gabbard's testimony, which was not her opinion. She was only on the job for a few weeks. She was just reading what our intelligence community had. Okay. So what their excuse is that things have changed, that in the last 2 months, supposedly, since that testimony, Iran has sped up their program so much that they've accelerated their program that it's now imminent. It went from 3 years to like 2 months. I mean,
Nonsense.
come on.
Nonsense. So Ron,
when you look at everything together, when you look at Netanyahu, who's, things are winding, Netanyahu is extremely unpopular in Israel. He's facing criminal prosecution for corruption, but he has immunity as president. And the only thing that's keeping him in power is war. So he knows once the conflict in Gaza is over, they're going to call for elections and he's out of office.
Right.
So now that war is winding down, he's trying to start a new one, I believe.
I tend to agree with you. Ron, as somebody like yourself who served this country honorably, can you explain to the American people how dangerous this is if, in fact, we do get involved with this war between us, Israel, and Iran? How dangerous this is?
Because this is a country of 80 million people, Iran. This is not Afghanistan. This is a country that can strike throughout the world, that has Iranian people, citizens in countries all over the world, especially Canada. There's a lot of Iranians in Canada. And it's not difficult to cross our border in the northern border. So my concern, people just look at this like a conventional situation. They only look at the threat of Iran striking our military bases, which is certainly a problem. Here's what can happen. War with Iran, first of all, will spike oil prices and get globally. They will go up dramatically. If we strike their oil facilities, that's going to make it even worse. And that's also going to help Russia, because the low prices of oil globally right now is what's really killing Russia's ability to fund their war machine. So if oil prices go up because of lack of supply coming out of Iran, that directly benefits Russia, hurts Ukraine, hurts Europe, hurts the world. They could also close the Straits of Hormuz easily, which is a major, shipping lane that they control. So they can do that. They can strike our military bases. But so all of those things are things that people worry about. But what I worry about, even more than those things, is a terrorist attack on U.S. soil conducted by the Iranians, and a big one. And what will happen if that does happen? What the Trump administration is going to do? They're going to blame it on Biden.
Of course, just like everything else. I completely 100% agree with you. Ultimately, what do you think will happen in 2 weeks? Do you actually think that Donald Trump will, for lack of a better term, pull the trigger and will be working with Israel and, we'll be flying missiles? Do you actually believe that this will actually happen and the U.S. will get involved here and Trump will make that decision? Or do you believe that he will take a few steps back and just allow Israel to do their thing? What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, I think that you can really look to the trade stuff as a roadmap for how he's handling this situation. If Iran chooses the path of Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico, which is basically like throw out some kind of olive branch face-saving thing for Trump to allow him to declare that he won, that he achieved a victory, then I think that there is a chance that this will not happen. But that would have to Iran would have to be willing to publicly state that they are making concessions. I'm not so sure that they can do that for their own people domestically, that their own people will accept that. And I'm not talking about everybody in Iran, because there's certainly many people in Iran that hate the regime.
Yeah.
But if Iran chooses the path of China and President Xi in trade negotiations, which is to basically just say, no, we're not making any deal, we're not making any public statements, we're not making any concessions, then I think that this goes forward and it escalates rather quickly. That's the other thing, is that some of the Republicans who have gotten on board for this think it's going to be like a surgical strike. We're going to take out the Ayatollah, we're going to take out the nuke facility, and that's it. They'll surrender and we win. It's not going to work like that. That's what they said about Iraq. That's what they said about Afghanistan. Here we go again.
Yeah, let's hope this doesn't happen. But I think there's
let's not forget George W. Bush was on an aircraft carrier declaring mission accomplished.
Right.
A month after we went into Iraq. 20 years later, we were still there.
Yep, that's true. We certainly don't want that to repeat itself. That's for sure. I want to read a tweet that you put out, which is interesting and true. You said inflation is up, prices are rising, interest rates are up, the GDP is down. We're going to war with Iran, but the good news is Trump had 2 new flagpoles put up at the White House today. Some of very large right-wing people that even work in Trump's administration are bragging about this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Sebastian Gorka was one of them. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, I just said how concerned I am about Iran launching a terror attack in the United States. Who is the person who is in charge of stopping that? It's Sebastian Gorka, who is grossly unqualified for the job, has no qualifications. He was a podcaster and a Newsmax host, and a low-level Trump appointee who was fired during his first administration. So now he's back, and he's in charge of counterterrorism for the United States. And so with this threat out there, you know, I'll check his Twitter account, and what's he doing? He's posting about these damn flagpoles that got put up. I'm like, dude, can you know, we got Hegseth running around doing push-ups on military bases, the Secretary of Defense. We got the head of counterterrorism posting about flagpoles. Trump, by the way, was complaining that he hasn't been able to play as much golf. He said at the flag unveiling ceremony on the White House lawn that he has won 35 club championships at his own club, of course, right? Sure. And he's worried that he hasn't been able to play golf in 3 weeks. So his streak of championships might be in jeopardy this year because he's out of practice. Very serious people.
Unbelievable. Sick. Speaking of unserious people, I do want to ask you about Mike Lee. We haven't talked since this whole thing took place with this horrific tweet that he put out. So he takes down the tweet. He dodges the media the other day, won't answer any questions about it. Keyboard tough guy warrior. What do you make of this guy, Mike Lee? Because, you know, if this was anybody with a normal job who did something like this, they'd be fired on the spot. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I tried to, I think that one of his Achilles heels, I mean, maybe not, maybe not. I mean, I'm wrong on this stuff sometimes, but is the Mormon Church. So when he did this, I tagged the Mormon Church. You know, I said, you know, this is your guy. This is the most, probably right now, the most senior person in the U.S. government who is a Mormon after Romney left, right? So this is your boy. You know, this is your guy. His father was an elder of the church. His father was the dean of BYU Law School. His brother was a state Supreme Court justice in Utah. So I thought, you know, if there's anybody that could talk some sense into this maniac, it could be his church. You know, I don't know. I don't know how much of a practicing Mormon he is. So he took the post down, but he still has not apologized. And by the way, who was the first person who launched the conspiracy on Twitter that JD Vance's Blue Sky account was banned? It was Mike Lee. So he learned a whole lot. He was right back at it, launching more conspiracies. And look, this is not a one-off. This guy's been doing this stuff for a few years now. He's really become one of these psychotic social media posters. I said, you know, this guy has had every advantage in life. He's born into a wealthy, politically connected family whose dad was the dean of the law school when he was a student there. He literally was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. This guy has had everything handed to him and led the easiest path in life any human being on earth could possibly have. But instead of being a distinguished U.S. senator like a Mitt Romney, he has chosen to be cat turd. That's who he wants to be. A right-wing social media kook. He wants to be Alex Jones now.
Despicable. I have to ask you quickly about Kristi Noem. We learned that she was taken by ambulance to the hospital. We've heard rumors of some sort of allergic reaction. Have you heard anything about what took place here, and why are people in the Trump administration being so mum about this?
Well, this came right immediately after she was visiting a bioweapons laboratory, which is a little unusual. You would think that they would, of course, take maximum precautions as she was touring the facility with RFK Jr. I mean, anybody who's around RFK Jr. could have an allergic reaction in some way. I don't know if you saw this story where he was just visiting a tanning bed in DC. He got caught coming out of a tanning salon. just like, guy's 71 years old. He's going to a tanning salon. Like, what a freaking nut. So he takes her to visit this bioweapon lab because he's probably against bioweapons, I'm sure, and probably wants to shut it down. And next thing you know, she's being rushed to the hospital with a quote unquote allergic reaction. The problem with this and with Iran and with everything else is this administration lies to us so much about just mundane, routine things that we obviously can easily prove is true. Like,
right.
They just said that there was 250,000 people at his parade in DC, right? I mean, everyone can look at that and say, it's not even 10% of that. Like, this is a complete lie.
Yep.
So when they lie to us about everything, and then, a story comes out, she got rushed to the hospital for an allergic reaction, everybody, of course, naturally thinks like, well, what's the real story? Because we just can't believe them about anything anymore.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I guess this would be my last question for you, Ron.
You're turning me into a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You're the left version of,
and I'm not,
which is ridiculous. If
I think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, man. I mean, I'm like the only one left, and now they're turning me into a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, crazy. By the way, you'd be the last person that I would call that. It's interesting, Ron, because people like you and me, the right would call us warmongers because we were in support of Ukraine, right? We support Ukraine, our allies, and obviously what Vladimir Putin has done and continues to do. We were the warmongers. But now, all of a sudden, where are those people? Where are those people that still support Donald Trump? Where are they? We were the warmongers. So what do you call Donald Trump now? Where are those people? Because they called us warmongers.
And we were supporting a country that had been invaded.
Right.
Iran has not invaded Israel. Israel started this. Now they're trying to characterize it as this was an offensive defensive action that they had to do a preemptive strike, right? Come on. By us supporting a country that's been invaded is far less of a warmonger because, Ukraine was not attacking Russia. They were defending themselves than this situation. But I find most disturbing is the religious angle of this.
Yeah.
Which is what we have heard from Ted Cruz and many others.
Yeah. What did you make of that Tucker Carlson interview, by the way? I wanted to ask you about it.
It was bizarre. I mean, I fell out of my chair because I have heard this in the past. They're citing this passage from Genesis. And you hear this a lot with the right-wing influencers and podcasters. I have heard this for years about Israel from them. Which is there's a passage in Genesis that basically says that it's a duty of Christians to defend God's chosen people, defend the people of Israel, of Judea, et cetera, et cetera. And if we don't, we will be basically condemned to hell, right? So that's a passage in Genesis. And they cite that as a reason why Huckabee is another one who's done this, who is our U.S. ambassador to Israel. They're citing a Bible passage in Genesis as their reason for why we need to go to war with Iran. So, it's one thing for like evangelicals and pastors to say that, which they have said for years. I've heard them say this stuff for years. But when Ted Cruz said it, I kind of fell out of my chair a little bit. Like a U.S. senator is now going to push the biblical angle that we have to go to war with Iran because the Bible tells us to. When the Bible was compiled in the 4th century, there wasn't even an Israel in existence. It didn't even, Judea had been annihilated, been destroyed by the Romans. It didn't even exist and certainly there was no state of Israel. So the idea that we have to go along with whatever Benjamin Netanyahu decides because of a passage in Genesis is total insanity to me. But that's what they're saying.
I wonder if it says anything in the Bible about flying to Cancun when your entire state is in a state of emergency, and then blame your kids for it. I wonder if there's anything in the Bible about that. I would ask Ted Cruz about that. Ron,
deporting children.
Yeah, exactly. Some with cancer, 4-year-olds. Yeah, I wonder if it says anything, if they really want to talk about the Bible. I wonder if it says anything in the Bible about, made in China for $3, sold for $60. We can go on and on there. Hey, before I let you go, Ron, what are you working on your Substack today? What article do you have coming out?
Oh man, let's see. What was I? That's a good question. India. I'm working on India right now. The Indian Foreign Secretary just issued a stinging rebuke of.
I have the audio of that.
Trump.
Yep.
Yeah, where they called him a liar. They said, this story that he keeps. I think they let him get away with it once. They let him claim that he brokered the peace deal between India and Pakistan. And they kind of because they didn't want to really make waves, they kind of let it go. But Trump keeps saying it over and over again. And I think finally they just had enough. And also it doesn't help the fact that trade talks between the US and India have completely fallen apart. There's not going to be any trade deal with India anytime soon, despite the fact that the Trump administration continues to say it's like any day now. The Indians are saying we're not close and we're not even talking, right? So I think they just had enough. And the foreign secretary came out and said, look, when Trump said that he brokered the peace deal, he's lying. They had nothing to do with it. And when Trump is saying we're close to a trade deal, he's lying about that too. We're not even speaking. So it's very, very unusual for a country like India, a huge country who is US friendly, with lots of trade, to make a statement like that about the American president is very unusual. They just had enough. So that's kind of what I've been writing about today.
I can't wait to read that. Basically, publicly calling Donald Trump a liar. This is pretty much unprecedented territory, at least when India is concerned. So I look forward to reading that article. Ron, you're the best. Appreciate your time as always, my friend. We'll catch up with you soon. Have a great weekend.
Okay. See you, Brian.
Thank you. Ron Filipkowski, everybody, one of the best in the business.